Hey there, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, where we celebrate Nick Cage's entire catalog. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, alongside Michael F. Florio, producer Randy at the controls. And last week we didn't have a guest. That's because I was lazy and I didn't, reach out to anybody in advance. This week we do have a guest, and this is long overdue. You can blame me for it. I will take all the blame on this one, though. It is our friend. You know him if you watch Fantasy Live as one of the hosts of Fantasy Live. If you watch NFL Network at all, you have seen him everywhere, whether it's NFL Now, whether it is Total Access, whether it is just on the road reporting everywhere. A guy that, we've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many years, and I have been remiss in getting him on our show, but I finally rectified that. It is the one and only Patrick Claybon. Welcome to the show. I'm sorry it took so long. I will make sure to not have such a long gap in the future. But welcome.
I'm just glad that it can happen. Like, period, at all, point blank. It's honestly it feels like I'm here, all the time because you guys are doing this and then we do the show, and there have been times where it's like, oh, it would be cool. There was a very embarrassing time where I just debased myself and outright said it. And I was like, hey, it would be cool if I could be on the podcast with you guys. But no, there's scheduling, everything. It rarely works out. So I'm just glad I could be here. And there are in my draft board, I don't want to spoil anything for later on in the show, but Nick Cage is featured.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if I'm trying to sway you guys or what, but yeah.
Oh no, I figured he was going to be. So basically what Patrick is alluding to, we're going to do another fantasy draft of things because those have been very popular. We are very happy with the response that you guys out there in social media land have given with them. So I figured for today, why not do a fantasy draft of 90s action movies? So stay tuned for that. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. So you can guarantee that there will be at least one, probably multiple entries featuring one Mr. Nicholas Coppola. So I'm looking forward to that. That one's going to be fun. I'm looking forward. Although Florida, we were sort of debating. Have you seen a lot of 90s action movies?
So I was gonna say, you guys, like I did well in the previous drafts. You guys are gonna eat my lunch in this one. Like I know the popular 90s action movies. After the first round or two, I might have to pull up Google.
All right. Okay. Well, we will see. We'll see how this works out.
Every chance you can make me feel like I am the sands of time itself, Mike. I appreciate
that. It's not even that like the 90s. I was alive in the 90s. It's just that there's a lot of movies I have not seen.
All right. We were having this debate. Hytham Kalani and I were having this debate yesterday that, we're like wondering how many of these has Florio actually seen. It's going to be interesting. We're going to put this to the test. If it makes you feel any better, we'll probably do one later that I know I'm not going to be great at. I know Randy has suggested we do a video game draft. In my days as a gamer have long since passed. So we can get Randy in on that draft, and I will probably take a big fat L. So if that makes you feel better. All right. We do have some off-season chatter things to talk about. This is sort of the dead period, despite the fact that our pals on Fantasy Twitter are constantly coming up with giant threads and all sorts of hot takes. Constantly. I love you guys, but some of y'all need to go outside. That's all I'm going to say. There is some off-season chatter things we can kick around a little bit just because this is a fantasy podcast, so we should at least pretend to talk about football for at least a portion of this before you all tune out. So let's start with some of the big news that hit earlier in the week, came in on Tuesday. Terry McLaurin agrees to a 3-year extension worth up to $70 million with the Washington Commanders. And I'm getting so much better at saying Commanders instead of saying football team. So I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. So he is locked in there. He has been a bright spot for this team for the last few years, despite a revolving door at quarterback. I know that fantasy folks love him. Patrick, he is just a straight up good football player. The contract makes him among the top 5 paid wide receivers in an offseason where wideouts have been getting the bag. In terms of his actual football ability, is he an actual top 5 receiver as you look at him right now?
Yeah, I think he is in terms of when you pay these guys. I'm not necessarily putting him in my top 5, but the issue, like if we're talking about fantasy ranking to real life ranking, I don't know if there's a bigger disparity in the entire league, right? Here's a Terry that like has produced constantly with some of the worst quarterback play in the world. And now here comes Carson Wentz. But what you get with Terry McLaurin is consistency, right? I think Harmon has him in the 97th percentile against zone, right? He's in the 90th against man press. it's so hard to find that consistency that there's a value to it. Even if you think, right, if you're dicing like MPJ or Terry McLaurin, like you have to consider that consistency with Terry. You're going to get around 120 targets. Like he's a player you could target without targeting the offense. Like you're not going to get any accidental touchdowns with Terry just because the offense is so great, but you are getting something because he is there. And so there's a value to that.
I mean, Florio. I mean, he mentioned Matt Harmon and the reception perception stuff. I mean, I saw the route charts all over Twitter after the contract was signed, or after it was agreed to, rather, on Tuesday. And Patrick talked about the disparity between real football and fantasy football. Obviously the numbers, at least the contract, says he's a top 5 guy. He doesn't seem to be drafted as a top 5 guy. Is that just because of the offense? Is it just because of the quarterback situation that we've kind of hesitated to draft him that high?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Patrick said it. Like, he's played his whole career with quarterbacks played ranging from really bad to like meh. And I know it's easy to take shots at Carson Wentz because he's Carson Wentz, but he's probably I don't even think probably, I would say unquestionably the best quarterback that Terry McLaurin has ever played with. So I think right there, like that's like, especially on deep balls, he's way better at throwing the deep ball than Taylor Heineke is. So I'm back in on Terry McLaurin. I think there's a lot of reasons. I've been a Terry stan basically for the last couple of years, but I think there's a lot of reasons to get excited for fantasy.
I'm trying to find the list of quarterbacks that he's played with. I mean, there was Alex Smith, there was Dwayne Haskins, there was Taylor Heineke. I feel like Colt McCoy might have maybe factored in there somewhere along the way.
One quarter with Ryan Fitzpatrick or something.
Yeah. One quarter with Ryan Fitzpatrick. That was the one we were excited about, and that one didn't happen because Fitz got hurt and ultimately retired. So we never really got to see that in any real length.
The list of the recent quarterbacks, it reads like the list of possible ailments at the end of a pharmaceutical commercial. Like it's bad.
Which, by the side note, like I watch those commercials and I forget what they're actually supposed to be treating because all I hear are like the side effects where like, it's like, hey, I have eczema, but like this thing might cause death. Like, I don't know. It's not really a fair trade-off to me, but that's just me. So it'd be curious to watch. I mean, I do think people are going to be in on Terry McLaurin just because he has, as you guys mentioned, he's been so consistent despite not having great quarterback play. And you're probably right, Florio. Carson Wentz is probably the best quarterback that he will have played with in his pro career. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's Allen Robinson like, the list of quarterbacks that he has run up on. So we'll see what happens. But, congratulations first and foremost to him for securing the bag because,
yes.
That's part of what these guys play for. So congrats on, at least trying to secure your future in a game that, any one play can be the end of it for you. In Cleveland, it's messy to say the least right now. Deshaun Watson, we are waiting to hear what his ultimate punishment may be from the league. Right now, the scuttlebutt is very much that he may see at least a full year suspension. We will wait to hear from that. Florio, our luck, that will probably be handed down about 20 minutes after this podcast gets published. But for now, it looks like Deshaun Watson is going to miss a significant amount of time. Well, Baker Mayfield is still on the roster, folks. He has not yet been traded. He still is a Cleveland Brown, and he was at I believe a youth camp the other day and was asked about any potential reconciliation with the Browns. And he said the mutual decision on both sides is to move on. I think he basically said the Browns could come to him and talk about it, but I think he has sort of moved on from them, and he believes they've moved on from him. So, Florida, I will ask you, Deshaun Watson probably not there. Baker Mayfield saying he's ready to move on and do insurance commercials at a different stadium. Who is going to be the Browns quarterback when the season starts?
Cleveland, get fired up. Week 1, Jacoby Brissett is going to be under center. He's going to be handling everything for the Cleveland Browns. Who knows for how long? Like you said, we're waiting on that. But I love the fact that like the Browns did everything they could to get Baker's replacement. Basically, tell him we don't believe in you. And then they were like, oh, you might not have that replacement for a full year. And people are like, hey, Baker, you want to go back? Like, no, come on, don't put Baker in that situation. Let him go to Seattle or Carolina or somewhere like that where we could all just be happier overall.
I mean, yeah, this is like the most awkward thing ever, right, Patrick? I mean, I just can't.
Yeah.
This is worse than trying to go back to your ex after a relationship falls apart. This is like you not only humiliated your ex, you like publicly burned all their clothes on the lawn, and now you're like, hey, so you want to go shopping and move back in? Like this is about as embarrassing as it gets.
Yeah, communication takes two parties, right? And I think in this instance, the relationship came to an end when one party was like, "Hey, I'm going to look at some other people, so we're going to take a break," and that other person legitimately believed it was a break. But the Browns were telling Baker Mayfield, "Hey, our starting quarterback for 2022 is not Baker Mayfield. Like we don't know who that person is going to be, but it is not going to be you." And through the process, I think some people thought, well, hey, maybe circumstances change. Maybe they can go back and make it. No, the Browns didn't want Baker Mayfield back at all. And I think like we've seen these back and forths, and now it's finally clear. It doesn't matter what it takes, right? It may take the Browns eating some salary to make the trade more amicable. It may take like an Odell type situation, but it's not going to be Baker. I'm with Mike. I think it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Because like legitimately Baker was so broken and wounded at the end of the season, you wondered if like was Case Keenum incapacitated at some point, or did they just hate Baker? And I think maybe yes is the answer to both of those questions, like considering how it went down. But this team is so talented. The offense is good. The fundamental structure of the offense, it can work with Jacoby Brissett, I think, and a lot of quarterbacks. But like the broken, needing 2 surgeries, Baker, yeah, I'm going to need to see him back to being Baker before I believe in something anywhere in 2022.
I guess, and that's the other part of it, though, right? It's, like you said, Patrick, they've got talent on that offense. I mean, they go out and they get Amari Cooper in the offseason. We know what they've got with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. The pieces seem to be there. They were hoping that they were a quarterback away, and signs point to them not having their quarterback for a significant portion of, if not the entirety of the year. So, Mike, I got to ask, I mean, does this mean where does this put you in terms of drafting Browns in fantasy? Are you just kind of hands off now, or are you still in on some of these guys?
So when they first got Amari Cooper, I was pretty high on him. I thought like there's a lot more targets up for grabs in Cleveland. I thought potentially like Deshaun Watson could get like a 6 to 8 game suspension, but now the full year is in play. So with that, I've kind of taken a very hands-off approach with this offense. I think if it's Jacoby Brissett, we'll see them run the ball a good amount, but Jacoby Brissett isn't the type of quarterback that's going to throw a bunch to his running backs. So that I think also hurts like Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I also think they could trade Kareem Hunt because they have Dearness Johnson there, and they've already traded away their 1st and 2nd round picks. So any draft capital they could get in return would be helpful for them. But yeah, right now, until with this whole Deshaun Watson situation hanging over the Browns, I've kind of been taking a hands-off approach, maybe like late round pick David Bell or Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I haven't really felt too bullish about any of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in on Nick Chubb. I would take Cooper sort of at a depressed ADP. That's kind of it right now, and not expecting to have Deshaun Watson. I don't know, Patrick, if you feel strongly, if you're really willing to bang the table strongly for any of these guys in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, I think the only conversation, right, is actually about Amari Cooper. I mean, I don't know if people are getting in knife fights over Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? Or it's really just like Nick Chubb. Like, what are our expectations for Nick Chubb? What do they plan to do? Because Mike mentioned that dichotomy of Kareem Hunt and our now just my brain's gone blank.
Dearness Johnson?
Yeah, Dearness Johnson, and the way that he came on with both of those guys down at some points in the season. It's really that. And what do we feel like the opportunity for Amari will be? How healthy will Amari be? But yeah, I think there's an argument to be made for more opportunity, but you're also subtracting Amari from that offense where you did have access to accidental touchdowns. It's like, oh, you're just on the field. You can score touchdowns on this offense. We're not going to be saying that about the Browns, right? Everything's going to be deliberate. Everything's going to be intentional. So if you have a healthy Amari Cooper, yeah, that's great, and that's up there. But I think it takes a few steps before you can really, really believe.
In early drafts, Cooper's been going like wide receiver 3 lately. So it's not like you have to pay up to get him.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. I do feel like, at least looking at ADPs and some of the drafts I've been in, I think people are sort of drafting with the expectation that the Browns quarterback situation is going to be not what we anticipated. So I think maybe that's sort of working into where we're seeing guys go at this point. Over to San Francisco, reports are Deebo Samuel has not rescinded his trade request, that he's still, I guess, reportedly not thrilled with what's going on in San Francisco. Now, I mean, Patrick, I know you are one to be very keep a close eye on stories like this. More of a critical eye, not necessarily just parroting what's out there, but taking a critical look at things like this. Like, is this something we should pay attention to, or is this sort of like when you sign up for a free trial of a streaming service and you forget to unsubscribe and then you're just paying for a full month? Like, is this really a thing, or is this like, hey, I'm happy, I just didn't officially pull it back yet?
Yeah, I think if we're gonna make the streaming service analogy, Marcus, it's when the price goes up on the streaming service and you call to complain and you threaten to leave, but you don't want to leave. Like you still like the service and you're probably willing to keep paying whatever rate that they're offering you. But you still complain. And like, we should care because like it's football. Football pays for the roof over my head, right? And I would like this dude to be compensated relative to the services he provides. But like, do I think Deebo's going to have 2021 again? No. Like, I don't think Cooper Kupp is either, right? It's hard to have that success so often, but like, I would still take those guys on my fantasy roster. So yeah, like I'm watching it. I'm paying attention to it, but I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a 49er because it would be absurd for the 49ers to, and especially Kyle Shanahan, to like believe in his own genius so much. It's like, oh yeah, this transcendently gifted football player, I don't really need him. Like Ayuk to the moon. Like, no, nobody thinks that.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that was the thing, though, Florial. I mean, at the start of the offseason, when this story first broke, we were, everybody was trying to figure out all the different permutations of where he could go and what does this mean for his draft value. Like, are we over? We're past that, though, now, right? We're assuming, like Patrick said, he's going to be a 49er.
I think, I mean, he showed up to minicamp. That was pretty telling, I think, even after, he was out there like in clubs and stuff telling people, I'm not coming back next year. Deebo doesn't, unfortunately for Deebo, he doesn't have a whole bunch of power in this situation, because if he sits out, like, he's just going to lose all the money. I still continue to think the most realistic situation is that these two sides just come to an agreement. Like, Deebo deserves to get paid. He literally carried you to the NFC. Like, there was times last year where I didn't know how Deebo Samuel was getting up, let alone running back out on the field and carrying this offense again. He's like the living Wolverine right now, at least how he was last year. Maybe you don't give him the carries. He doesn't want that. Just, all right, like, he was on pace for like 1,800 receiving yards before they started using him in the backfield. Like, there's plenty of ways to get this guy the ball open in space, and Kyle Shanahan knows how to do it. It's, to me, the 49ers would be a lot worse without Deebo, but I think Deebo would be worse without the 49ers. So, like, they just need to kind of come together and make this work.
Yeah, this does feel like it's a perfect marriage, basically. Both sides really need each other. Both sides are better off with each other. I think they figure it out. I know it was like about a month ago, I think Fred Warner said he thinks it's going to get done. Obviously Fred has more inside information than any of us do, since he actually talks to all the parties involved. So I think I'll take Fred Warner's version of it over what we're seeing on Twitter. I think they'll figure it out, and I think you can draft Deebo and you'll be fine. But like Patrick said, if you're expecting him to repeat what he did last year, you're going to be disappointed. Like, I think he can have a really great year, but because he won't run for 500 yards, somebody out there is going to call him a bust and say that he's weak and you shouldn't have drafted him. Don't listen to those people. They're not your friends.
120 targets. Like people like chill out on like, oh, Deebo can go to this team and be a running back. No, like, Deebo's skill set is give Deebo the ball, and like, yeah, right. they had such problems in the backfield that they had to give it to the best thing you could do is let Deebo run away from people and throw him the ball. Like, that's where his value lies. Like, I mean, do that.
They even had him throw a couple touchdown passes. Right. He threw a touchdown pass like late in the season. Like, USA, he literally did everything on offense. He did everything short of like selling popcorn at Levi's Stadium. And probably if they asked him, he probably would have done that effectively too. That's all I know.
He would have been the top popcorn salesman, no doubt about it.
Right.
I mean, look, if I'm like, hey, that's Debo Samuel, I'm totally gonna buy popcorn from that dude. Like just his presence alone would have boosted popcorn sales at Levi's. In Minnesota, our friend Arif Hassan, who does great work at The Athletic, he and Chad Graff were talking about the new offense there under Kevin O'Connell. And the word they kept using was pass happy, that this offense is going to be more pass happy than it's been in the past. So, Florio, Kirk Cousins seems to have been sort of that baseline fantasy quarterback, that guy that's kind of mid-level, not going to kill you, maybe not, going to win you a league, but, it's just steady. If they are more pass happy, does this mean we should be higher on Kirk Cousins this year?
I don't think so, only because of the position itself. Like, there's so many quarterbacks who already put up big passing numbers and they run. No offense to Kirk Cousins, he is not going to give you many points with his legs. And I've said it on the show before, Marcus. I know technically QB1s in fantasy are supposed to be like the top 12. I keep saying there's 15 QB like quarterbacks that I would be comfortable with as my starter. Kirk Cousins is in that group with like Derek Carr and those guys, but I have him behind all the quarterbacks who can run. I have him behind like Brady, Rodgers, Stafford. So at that point, yeah, he comes in like 14, 15, but that's just more because there's so many good options at the quarterback position. It's not really a knock on Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I feel like Patrick, he is who he is, but maybe who he is better than we give him credit for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's, we watch this game because we enjoy it and we want to see people do amazing things. And it's not very often that Kirk Cousins, like the person, does something that's so obviously amazing that we're like, wow, Kirk Cousins. But like Justin Jefferson was on Total Access last week and he was talking about how excited he was about the offense. And I'm like, wow, how much better could Justin Jefferson's numbers be? And so like, I went and looked it up. And like, my question is, how different from the Rams offense is this new liberated Kevin O'Connell system really going to be, right? You take the talent that you have and you try to put it in the best position to win. And in terms of pass rate, the Vikings were 15th, right? Last year in 2021. So if Mike Zimmer is this autocratic anti-pass force, like, then yeah, sure. If you think the Vikings are going to be like one offense, then sure, like Kirk Cousins to the moon. But I don't know how much different it's really capable of being in terms of like where the league goes. If you add a touchdown per game and make them literally the best offense in the world, yeah, it changes everything, right? Don't fade Dalvin, don't change anything. Take all the Vikings. But if it's just a little bit better, I don't. So they go from 15th to what, like 8th? I don't really see it.
Yeah, I don't know. This also just feels like those things that we hear again. This category I'm coming up with, things we say in June, right? Like this feels like things that we say in June, right? They go through mini camps, they're working on things, and all of a sudden everybody loves the new offense, and this player's in the best shape of his life. And man, there's more zip on the ball from Kirk. It's just all these things that we say in June that don't necessarily translate to September. So that being said, Florio, we're not moving Dalvin Cook anywhere, are we?
I'm not. No, I think he's right in the group that he belongs with like Najee Harris, Leonard Fournette, and that group of running backs. I even have him ahead of those guys. I have him ahead of Joe Mixon. I think he's my RB5 behind only Taylor, Eckler, McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. So I still think Dalvin Cook is, an elite running back. He's amazing when he like Patrick's point about Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook is the opposite. He routinely does stuff that we're like, wow, this guy is incredible. And even if they start passing the ball a little bit more, we know how great he is as a receiver as well. So I think he can, if he loses a couple of carries and gains some more targets, that's kind of a net positive for him in fantasy.
Anybody swayed one way or another by Dalvin Cook changing his number? I think he's going back to 4.
Yes, I am. 4 is a very fast number. I think you get like a +3 speed boost. Not in terms of a Madden scale. This is on 1,000.
I was going to say, do we need to ask our pal Franchise?
No. This is you get an actual speed boost because the number is lighter itself, right? So Dalvin can only be faster.
That makes more aerodynamic.
Yeah, no, that actually makes sense to me. I mean, not only is it's one digit as opposed to two, but even 4 is less than 6, which is what 3 plus 3 would have even out to be.
Numbers.
Is
You got to look
is
at
there
them.
any numbers that like you see a player wearing it and you're like, that looks wrong?
44.
Yeah,
Get it out of here. Go
like
away.
44 is only good for fullbacks. Like that's it. That is literally the only but even not just a regular. You got to be like a Tom Rathman. I'm going back in the days, like a Tom Rathman, Lorenzo Neal type fullback. Like you're too short to be an offensive lineman and too wide to be like an actual like running back sort of thing. Like that's all it works for. That's it. So, all right, last bit of news. I'm using air quotes here. Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell, per TMZ, are in the works to face off in the ring. They are going to have a boxing match against each other because I guess that's what you do now when you're a retired running back. I mean, Frank Gore is boxing. Adrian Peterson and Lev Bell are planning to box. So, I mean, Patrick, I'll start with you. Would you pay actual American currency to watch this fight?
If I were put in a situation where I had to watch this fight, I would spend upwards of $50 to not watch it. I think this is dystopia manifest. These are two people who have in their career like $160 million combined NFL earnings, which is like 1/15 of that WeWork grifter and how much money he's worth. It's just sad that they're going to do this. And especially they're going to have to do it in a place where in an arena that's now named after a crypto organization. So
it'll always be Staples Center to me, by the way.
It's the culmination of a bunch of sad things that make me sad. So no, I would never watch this.
Yeah, I don't think I could pay money to watch it. Like, inevitably, I'm sure there will be some clips that surface on Twitter or something like that, and maybe I'll watch those. That being said, Florio, do you have a side in this one?
First of all, I think we should make this more interesting, and like they should pick the worst, like the Texans, let's say, are the worst backfield in the league. Whoever wins should get like a contract for the Houston Texans or something like that. I'm gonna go with Adrian.
Is that for the winner or the loser?
That's a good point. I'm gonna pick Adrian Peterson just because I don't know. He just seems like the bigger guy. But I don't know. Like I thought, if you asked me before Frank Gore fought Deron Williams, I would have easily said Frank Gore was gonna win that match, and he got yeah. So I'm gonna go with Adrian Peterson. My real question is, will we get a Antonio Brown sighting at this event?
Ooh, yeah. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I was gonna say if AB did a song for Lev Bell to like walk into the ring, but Lev also is a wannabe rapper, so he might write his own song.
Probably.
Which I will say that the other songs I've heard from him are ungood. So I don't know if this was gonna be much better, but I would think that he would write his own walk into. But I could see AB sitting ringside, I imagine dressed like in full-length fur and wearing sunglasses indoors. Like I can totally imagine that. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anybody out there you guys would like to see fight? Like any NFL players, past or present, you would like to see in a bout?
Absolutely. My number one pick in that would be Josh Lambo versus Urban Meyer after the incident last year. Because I've always fantasized, right? Ever since Coach Knight put his hands on players all the time. It's like, one day a coach is going to do something physical to the wrong player and find themselves in a situation. And I just wish that Josh Lambo would have put his foot in Urban Meyer's face after him kicking him last year and ultimately firing him. So yeah, I would like revenge for Josh Lambo. I would love to watch an old man get beat up.
Maybe that's the way we settle player coach disputes. Like real, not just like, hey, I told you to run this play and you didn't run it. Like, not those basic kind of disputes, but like when you have legitimate player coach disputes, maybe this is how we settle them now,
Like Mike Tomlin versus Chase Claypool for the right to play music. Practice.
Yeah, exactly. So that Chase Claypool can run the Spotify at practice or something like that. Like they box it out for 3 rounds, and then we figure it out.
Or like the old Bucks players who Greg Schiano gave MRSA and then also like asked to dive into offensive linemen's knees against their will.
Yeah.
I think they should be able to square up with Greg Schiano too. That would be cool.
They absolutely should.
Dude.
I do wonder because I remember, there was also the Jack Del Rio, the Jack Del Rio that got his kicker hurt because he left an axe like in the middle of the locker room.
What?
Oh, did you not know? Yeah, this is back when Jack Del Rio was the head coach of the Jaguars and was trying to motivate them. He had something about chopping wood, and he left an axe inside a stump in the middle of the locker room, and the kicker got. I don't know
What could go
exactly how,
wrong?
but got hurt on the axe and ended up missing a significant amount of time over this sort of thing.
Did you
yeah.
guys hear? I
Look
know
it up. It was not great.
this is off the rails a bit, but did you hear that apparently Rajon Rondo and Ray Allen had to box it out because they hated each other so much when they were on the Celtics?
Good.
I
That's how sometimes it's gotta, like, people talk about locker room dissent and trouble. Like, Percy Harvin was in a fight moments before the Super Bowl and then went out and played great. Like, it doesn't matter.
They destroyed Denver that day.
Like, as long as you execute, like, it literally, like, okay, who cares? Like, it's nice to have friends, but go out there and like beat somebody's ass. Hell yeah, if they need it, like, get it out.
So I'm sure there will be more about this this bout as we get closer to it. Provided it actually happens, I'm sure social media will be all over that. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Then we're gonna come back with the real main event of this thing, the fantasy draft of things. We're gonna talk 90s action movies in just a bit. Stick around on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. All right, this is what I'm pretty sure you guys all came for because, there's no actual fantasy to talk about right now. So we're doing another fantasy draft of things, the F dots, which have been very, very popular. This one we're stepping away because we've done two food related ones, and we've done like a movie one. So we're back to the movies theme. I apparently I only have two categories in my head that I can actually think about. But so we're gonna do 90s action movies. So Florio has already sort of conceded that he may be a little bit deficient. So you may want to take that in mind if you guys are voting on this on the interwebs after you hear this podcast. But as is our custom, it is 4 rounds, not a snake. We just keep the same order all the way through. We allow our guests to go first, and Florio will go second, and I will bat cleanup. Is it cleanup? There's only 3 of us. Whatever. So Patrick, the 1.01 in 90s action movie is yours.
Oh, and you guys had an advantage, know the people you're drafting with, and you guys knowing me, you know the obvious number 1 overall pick. It's the greatest movie of all time. It is Terminator 2: Judgment Day, a masterpiece by James Cameron featuring Arnold Schwarzenegger, number 1 overall. Gimme.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy call. I felt like that was kind of the only one I could think of to go number 1 overall. I mean, it was like the biggest movie of the 90s. That makes plenty of sense. All right, so T2 is off the board. Florio, where are you going to go?
So I have a question. Do mob movies count as action movies or no?
Sure.
If
There's
people
action.
get dead, and there's action, yeah, they
People
count.
get dead.
All right,
So
then I might be a little stronger because I've seen a lot of mob movies in my day. Give me Marcus is already writing it out.
I'm already
before I
typing
even
it in.
said
I'm already pretty sure what you're going to say, but I will wait for you to say it.
It is
officially.
literally my favorite movie of all time, and not only that, it was on TV last night. I was watching it last night, so I have to draft it.
Goodfellas?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. As soon as you said mob movies, I'm like, okay, well, I know where Florio's going with this one. So, all right, so Goodfellas is off the board. So there were only 2. There were 2 movies that I thought Patrick might take at number 1. He took Terminator 2, which isn't a surprise. The other one I thought he might take early, so I'm gonna take it just because it needs to come off the board right now. And it's I put it in the title of this week's episode. It's Face Off because why not, man? Like, it is a bananas, completely bonkers movie. The premise is ridiculous, but it is so good, and especially when you have Nick Cage just saying, "I'm going to take his face off." So I'm gonna start my first round, or finish the first round, I guess, with Face Off. So all right, round 2, back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, you got me there because I was going to cover some genres, and Face Off just makes you feel good and how silly it is. So now I have to go back and kick it down the fairway with 1999's The Matrix. Slid right in there at the end of the decade, changed the way that we think about and visualize film. So I will have The Matrix, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid pick there at number 2. All right, Mike, it's yours.
All right, you guys can make fun of me for picking this movie. I watched it again as an adult, and I will admit it's not nearly as good as I remembered as a kid. But give me Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy and Bane, who is nothing like the actual character of Bane. But as a kid, I don't know how many times I watched that movie.
Funny you say that going back and you realize it's not as good. That's how I felt about Batman Forever. Is that when I saw Batman Forever in the theater, I'm like, oh my goodness, this movie is awesome. And then I think I got it on VHS and I watched it at home and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? This movie is trash. So so I understand. I completely understand how you're feeling. All right, so I've already taken it. I don't know if I want to double up on Nick Cage movies just yet. Maybe a little bit later. I'm gonna go with one that I thought was amazing. I still think is amazing, and it has spawned a whole long-lasting franchise. But I still think none of them were as good as the original. Shout out to Tom Cruise, who turned 60 in just a few days. The original Mission Impossible was amazing, and I still contend that Ethan Hunt should be sort of like the American James Bond. That whenever Tom Cruise is done playing Ethan Hunt, we just hire a new actor and we just keep the Ethan Hunt Mission Impossible movies rolling. So we can just roll them for time and eternity. I think that's what we should do. So, all right. So we are through 2 rounds. Patrick, it's back to you.
All right. So after getting sniped there, Marcus is our draft boards are eerily similar. I will. Because we've got Arnold taken care of, we've got Tom Cruise now. I think Will Smith, it's time for him to make an appearance here. We're about to watch this movie as we do every single year. I will take Independence Day, featuring Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, the legendary Bill Pullman's performance as Thomas Whitmore. Got to get it. Give it to me.
I remember seeing that movie in college. My friends and I went to the premiere, like the opening night, at the Chinese Theater, and it was bananas. I mean, the place was packed out. I mean, it was just as raucous and rowdy as you could imagine. You talk about great theater going experiences. That was one of my great theater going experiences, seeing ID4 in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater on opening night. All right, Florio, round 3. Your pick is.
I got a little nervous when Patrick mentioned Will Smith because I'm going to double down on Will Smith here. Give me Men in Black. As a kid, I used to run around all the time, like trying to, make people forget with like a pen and stuff. I love that movie.
Wait, what did you need to make people forget, Mike?
He's like a little pen or whatever that he pushes.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So Men in Black is off the board. I don't have a Will Smith movie that I think is good enough, is strong enough to finish out the round. So instead, I'm going to pivot. We've already had one Keanu Reeves movie. I'm going to take another Keanu Reeves movie here. And apparently, I'm sniping Patrick yet again. This has been great. So I'm taking another Keanu Reeves movie. It is a movie that I legitimately saw 7 times in theaters. Speed. I'll say it's not because I necessarily loved it so much, but because it was the biggest thing out that summer, and all my friends were like, "Hey, you want to go see Speed?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I ended up going like 7 times in the theater to see that movie. All right, so we are through 3 rounds. This has been a solid draft. I'm not gonna lie. This has been a tough draft. So, 4th and final round. There's still a lot of things I have on my draft board, and I don't know where I'm gonna go. So, Patrick, you can start off this last round.
Okay, and I will deviate from my board because I feel nice about what I have, and I will take a risk here. There's a whole genre of films that date back to Die Hard, and Die Hard is, of course, too old here. But people cite Air Force One as being Die Hard on a plane, but it's not. The real Die Hard on a plane features Wesley Snipes, and it is Passenger 57.
Oh.
Give me Passenger 57 as one of the best action movies in the 90s.
That's a good one too. We didn't have a Wesley Snipes entry into this as one of the bigger. I feel like he's one of the 4 food groups of 90s action movies.
Easily.
So Passenger 57 starts off the 4th round. All right, Florio, where are you gonna go?
So I considered another mob movie here, but I already have one. I considered a movie that they're still making new ones of today, but I didn't love it. So I'm gonna cover my bases, get a little comedy in here as well. Give me Give me Rush Hour. I wanted to take
Ooh.
Rush Hour 2, which is my personal favorite, but that came out in 2001, so I'll take the original.
Yeah, Rush Hour was on my board. I had it there, but that's a really really good call. So I'm gonna finish this out, and I have so many choices here, but I'm gonna go sort of off menu as well a little bit, and I don't know. I think I may get dinged in the voting for this, but I don't care because I loved this movie. We don't have any. Well, I guess we do have some Jackie Chan. Ooh, so this changes. This actually changes my thought process because we do have Jackie Chan with Rush Hour. So instead, I'm gonna go with Desperado, the Antonio Banderas and classic that introduced the world to Salma Hayek as well. You know, it was not it's definitely more big budget. I don't know if anybody saw El Mariachi, which was the first Robert Rodriguez film that he made for like, you know, $12 and a pack of gum. But Desperado was outstanding. I don't know if it's going to resonate necessarily with the voters, but I love it. Otherwise, I was going to go Rumble in the Bronx, but we already had Jackie Chan on the board, so I decided to pivot. I think this is a good list, gentlemen.
Yeah. If Desperado doesn't resonate, go watch the movie. Also, if you feel like Face Off and you're in that mood for something that's absolutely bananas, watch the sequel to Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yeah.
It is absolutely preposterous.
It is bonkers, man. Like Johnny Depp, you know, like on the search for like the best dish he can find, and offing cooks who don't cook it as well. Yeah, I mean. So some of the ones that didn't make the list that I had on my list that we didn't take. Con Air didn't get called. Point Break is still on the board. Total Recall, The Rock,
Yeah,
True Lies. There's still some heavy hitters on the board here.
I was surprised Jurassic Park was
Jurassic
didn't
Park
get taken.
It was still on the board. So there's still. I'm sure the voters on Twitter will let us know all about what we missed, which has been sort of the fun of doing these as well. So yeah, but I feel confident in my list. This is a strong list. Of course, as always, we'll put these out on Twitter, and you can go vote for who you think had the best.
I have a
draft.
bunch of whole new movies to go watch now.
oh my gosh,
Absolutely, go
Please
check them
do.
out. Yes, absolutely, go watch them.
How many movies on this list do you think I haven't seen?
Oh boy.
Let's see.
I feel confident you haven't seen Passenger 57.
Yeah,
Nope.
Bad Boys was on my list. I hope you've seen the original Bad Boys.
That I have.
I'm guessing you haven't seen Desperado. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen Desperado.
I have not.
We got a lot of work to do. folks.
Speed? Have you seen
I
Speed?
have not seen Speed.
Both Speed and Point Break were on my draft board, and I didn't know which one because they're both kind of odes to Los Angeles.
Right.
They delve into so much propaganda that I couldn't draft them on my list. So that's what happened there.
I mean, have you seen Face Off, Florio?
I know what the movie is, but I have not seen it.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that's another. Honestly, you and I, we should just sit down and just have a Nick Cage film festival. Our old friend Alex Gelhar, we used to do that. He would call them cage fights, where we would just sit down in an evening and we would watch 2 or 3 Nick Cage movies in a row. You know, with copious amounts of alcohol involved, because that makes it all the much better.
See,
That
I
feels
know
like
Nick
20
Cage.
years ago.
Right?
I know like bad movie Nick Cage, like Ghost Rider, I think was the one. Like I know like when Nick Cage was kind of becoming like a pun in jokes. That's the Nick
Yeah.
Cage I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's done 2 movies where he can see the future. Like
Oh man. All right. This was fun. Patrick, we will definitely not go as long between having you on again. Because you know, you're our pal and we like talking to you, we like having you on the show. So we will do this again soon, I promise you.
hooray.
All right. And I'd say, you know, I've asked people where they can find you, but basically just turn on NFL Network and you will see Patrick at some point in the very near future.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's super fair. Twitter.com/Patrick Claybon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If I'm not on TV with you guys, I'm doing whatever is necessary to keep my job, keep these lights on. So like, I have not managed to say no to anything yet, but
There you go.
that's the song that I want to
Hey,
do.
look, you know what? It worked for Samuel L. Jackson. Apparently, that's what I've heard. Is that
Heck yeah.
Samuel L. If you can get your script to him, he will do your movie. So, like, you know, for all you budding screenwriters, if you want Sam Jackson in a movie, just, you know, I don't know, try to harass him at a restaurant or something in Los Angeles. Don't actually do that, please. All right. In the meantime, That'll do it for this edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. Stay happy, safe, and healthy. Do good and live well. Enjoy your Independence Day, whether it's the film or the actual holiday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of the people around you. And we will actually talk to you next week.